It won't soon be forgotten, the outpouring for Princess Diana, nor is it easily explained. But she had a gift for touching people, and yesterday the people came to say goodbye. Chris Hansen talked to a family that came to say their farewells.
More than 1 million mourners came to see Princess Diana's funeral procession through the streets of London. But Barbara Powell and her daughter Debbie felt strangely alone.
There was nobody else here as far as I was concerned. And then when it had passed, they just reappeared.
Have you ever felt anything quite like that before?
No. But then, I've not lost anybody, I don't think, as close as Diana.
For Barbara Powell, for Debbie Powell, for so many others, the death of a princess they had never met made them do things they had never done. Friday evening, the Powells traveled 5 hours by bus from Manchester in the north of England. For the first and probably last time in their lives, they planned to spend a night on the sidewalk, the only way to ensure they would see Princess Diana's funeral cortege.
I just wanted to be here. I think because you're just going to feel closer to her. And it's probably going to make it real that she has died. I just can't believe yet that she's dead. And I think when I see the coffin going past tomorrow, I think then I will know.
Nearby, preparations were underway for Saturday's funeral. The trappings that befit a final journey for a beloved princess got the finishing touches, and the horses that would bear her casket were readied. The Powells found a spot near the Horse Guards Arch, not far from Westminster Abbey, where the funeral would be held. With thousands of others, they tried to sleep, but with the bright street lights, they mostly held an all-night vigil.
How can a person that's so alive be dead? It just doesn't seem to make sense.
Saturday morning, after a brief nap, the Powells awoke with the pale light of dawn. But there were no regrets about spending a mostly sleepless night.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad that it came.
Oh, saving on the electric bill.
Why didn't they do that last night? We might have gone to sleep.
And for a moment, the laughter broke the prevailing mood. As the mounted police patrolled the funeral route, the horses' hooves echoed along the avenue, the same sound they'd hear 6 hours later.
I don't really know how I feel. To be quite honest, I'm a little bit apprehensive might be the word.
Barbara and Debbie Powell made new friends among the mourners who gathered overnight.
I just had to come. And just thought there was something inside me compelling me to come.
Thousands of others felt compelled. As the morning light grew, so did the crowds.
It's quiet. For the amount of people, there's just this quietness.
Like that lady said, people are in a cheerful sort of way, but very sad with it as well. It's very hard to describe. I really don't know when she comes round that corner what I'll be like. Don't know.
As the hours passed, the broad spectrum of people who love the people's princess prepared themselves for a sight that until last week they thought would be decades away, not moments.
It seems to just be sending that shiver down your spine.
As dawn broke over Buckingham Palace, a stream of figures emerged from the gloom as the crowds flocked to pay tribute to Diana. They joined the thousands who had camped through the night, most of whom had never done anything like this before.
That's right.
Like this Surrey family.
It's just a
Never
feeling
done
that
anything.
we felt we had to be
That's
here.
right.
And
Everybody just wants to come and say goodbye, really.
The funeral cortege drew closer. Soon it would come through the arch and make a right-hand turn, and what little sound there was simply trailed away. A few moments later, the sound of the horses. Later, the assembled crowd joined in the service at Westminster Abbey through the loudspeakers that were set up along the route.
What will you remember most about today?
Just the very first sight of her in the coffin, because that confirmed to me that she had actually died. That's when I actually realised. I hadn't realised all week. When I saw that coffin, that was it. I realised then.
The public at large will get a chance to visit Diana's grave. Her family is planning to open the grounds of the estate around Diana's final resting place to visitors for several weeks each year. And there's little doubt they will come.
It's the intrusion.
What's also different today is that now the future King of England actually walks and talks with the media, although he is a bit shy about it.
I'm not very good at being a performing monkey, really. And I think that I'm quite a sort of private person. I'm not prepared to just perform whenever they want me to perform. I always think there's a camera now. It is extraordinary how now you feel, I do anyway, that wherever you are, there's somebody hiding behind something, somewhere. And with these immense cameras now, with these huge lenses and magnification, you can sit, you know, a mile away, quite happily, and photograph through windows and everything else. And they do.
An endless search for celebrities, something I have to say that wasn't invented here, is also part of the change I've seen in this society. It has been central to the whole Diana experience. With her arrival, the star-making industry went into overdrive. She became a business. Her shoes were copied. Her hair was copied. This mirrored the changes that had already begun in this society. Until Diana, the royals had always been out of step with society.
For example, this was once Scott's Oyster Bar in Piccadilly, a legendary place of privilege. Aristocracy and royalty used to dine here until the march of commercialization made it fall out of fashion. It is now, as you can see, an amusement arcade. Changes like this to be seen all over Britain.
Privilege was giving way to populism. But although the erosion of privilege cannot all be blamed on fast food and fun, I do remember watching with some surprise as the young royals took over the limelight. They had a good time. They flirted and did things that were simply unroyal.
Anything can happen in these games. And you make it happen.
Media access to their private moments had always been restricted to things like picnics and the grouse moor. But now their lives seem to be becoming more ordinary. I, along with the rest of the world, watched the Queen horseback riding with the President of the United States, and it was splendid. But I also watched her being parodied on television as entertainment, and that was not.
I have to admit to occasionally having been shocked by what was happening to Britain. I'd always been brought up on the idea that the British had perfected the art of politeness and the stiff upper lip. Whatever the odds, nothing moved them.
In the past few days, it has been too easy to claim that Charles is a hard, cold royal, sensitivity bred out of him through decades of royal schooling. Certainly, the cameras seldom catch the vulnerable side of this man, but on rare occasions, and I remember one, the ordinary mortal has shown through. During a concert at Buckingham Palace, Charles and Diana were both seen transported by the music. And yes, that's right, Charles even shed a tear. Nowadays, it seems a show of emotion has become essential, even perhaps required. People touch royalty and are touched by them. It is clear to me that the royal family, the firm as they call themselves, and perhaps even the country over which they ceremonially rule, have been changed more by one young woman, Diana, than by any previous experience in their history.
Today, hard copy went with them on their pilgrimage to return her love.
She did what other people wouldn't do. She would pick up a child who had a disease, and everyone else would shun away, and she would say, it's okay.
It was a moving service. The children of Hale House, many of whom have already experienced great tragedy and suffering in their own young lives, knew they were honoring a great lady.
Did you like the music? Yes. Yes, they loved it.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Los Angelinos gathered to pay their own respects. Whenever Princess Diana came to L.A., she outshone even the most glamorous stars. And on Saturday, perhaps the only other person on the planet who is as famous made a rare public appearance.
In honor of my friend, who is no longer here. Thank you. I love her.
We'll be back with more hard copy in just a moment.
Controversy, but this time it was her timing that was controversial. The Royals, a stark look at the House of Windsor and the works for 4.5 years, was scheduled to be published only a week after Princess Diana's untimely death.
I'm absolutely rocked by the princess's death. And I wish I weren't coming up with the book now.
Kitty Kelly's portrait of a royal family and how its most popular member was cut out of the picture. Coming up on Dateline. It is awaited breathlessly by the publishers for the blockbuster sales she's had, by reporters for the colorful, gossipy facts she unearths, but above all by the subject she chooses, because Kelly has a reputation for leaving no stone unturned, no doors unopened. Her latest book has been cause for speculation, literally for years. Now, the week it hits the bookstores, the title itself is worth a double take, because the object of her investigation this time was the Royals. A happy coincidence? It was not. This is awkward for you, being Kitty Kelly this particular week in your outsized, in-your-face persona.
I feel uncomfortable.
The publication date, September 23rd, had been set months ago. Last week, it was moved up 6 days, leaving its author feeling very conflicted. At times, she appeared near tears.
I just feel like I'm, as you say, in your face at a time when even the royal family needs a little time for
and deserves.
Grieving. And deserves, no question.
The royal family is beset with grief and beseeched by its subjects to be more open, more human. And yet it's hard to imagine a family with fewer secrets left than the House of Windsor. Diana herself pulled back the veil and exposed many of their secrets. And encouraged by the Duchess of York, Kelly says, she gave a television interview without consulting the palace.
I would like a monarchy that has more contact with its people.
She realized that you're only as sick as your secrets. And she didn't want that sickness anymore. And all she did was tell the truth. Her suicide attempts, I think, were really calls for attention and help. That's all they were. She was getting no help from her marriage, from the royal family.
In fact, Kelly claims her book is sympathetic to Diana.
The book is so eerie in many respects, really eerie, in that once you read this, and there will be things in it that are very shocking to people, but you understand what the Princess of Wales had to go through in this family.
On top of information she gleaned from 183 other books about the royal family, Kelly claims she conducted over 800 interviews, gathering intelligence from palace servants, retainers, and titled relatives, and upstairs, downstairs of royal informants.
It's like they're in a velvet prison. They're not evil people. They're hapless. They're not heroic. And that's why they're so disappointing.
She says it was that sense of disappointment that inspired those unforgettable images, that outpouring of grief.
A lot of that grieving, I think, came from the British people's feeling of anger and frustration with their royal family, things that they themselves really couldn't articulate. And this gave them a vehicle for doing it.
Diana's was not the first divorce to shake the House of Windsor. The 1936 abdication of King Edward to marry Wallis Simpson was more earth-shaking. But of the Queen's 3 married children, Charles was the 3rd to be divorced. But the reservoir of anger we witnessed this month may have been fueled by what to many appeared to be Diana's demotion.
Do you know how awful that was for Diana to lose the status of Her Royal Highness? Up to that point, and ever since her wedding,
she had been the third highest ranking woman in the realm. Now, it means nothing to us.
Because she still got to be Princess of Wales, and we still called her Princess Diana.
But Jane, in her world, every woman in the realm had to give her a curtsy, except for the Queen and the Queen Mother, according to protocol. She gave that up, and you saw from the minute she lost her title, things changed. The world tilted. People treated her differently over there. It's a terrible thing to do to the mother of the future king.
In death, however, Diana was accorded a gesture she would never have experienced in her life. The Queen bowed as her coffin passed. And among the many ironies is this one. Kelly says it was another funeral in 1979 for Charles' great-uncle Earl Mountbatten, the victim of an IRA terrorist bombing, that first brought the Prince of Wales and Diana together.
He was very touched when he first met her at a house party. He'd known her, but when he first took notice of her, and she said that she had seen him on television in 1979, speaking the eulogy at Mountbatten's funeral.
They that go down to the sea in ships and occupy their business in great waters.
And she said how moved she was because he seemed so lonely and needed someone to take care of. He was really quite taken aback with that.
Was that kind of forward on her part? Was she?
I think it was very real. Oh, she made no pretense that she loved the Prince of Wales, that she fell in love with him.
What do you mean?
During the courtship. She loved him. She was almost subservient to him in a way.
I don't know what you thought of me.
Pretty amazing.
Kelly writes that during their 5-month courtship, Charles never once visited the London flat Diana's father had bought for her. At the time, she was working with young children. She had been a babysitter. Why was she babysitting? Did she need the money?
Didn't need the money, but loved doing it. Loved doing it. That's why she became a nursery school assistant. She loved being around children.
She was also an aristocrat who loved doing housework. What was her reputation as a roommate?
Great. A great cleaner.
A cleaner?
No, she really loved to clean. She was extraordinarily neat, so much so that she was almost compulsive. You can almost see this young girl trying to put order into chaos.
Chaos rooted in an unhappy childhood. Kelly writes Diana's father was an abusive, sometimes violent husband, and that Diana had a rocky relationship with her mother, Frances Shand Kidd. Diana was 6 when her parents divorced, and 8 the very day of Charles' investiture as Prince of Wales.
Our most dear son, Charles, Philip, Arthur, George.
It was on that occasion he gave his first interview, being asked at 20 what kind of bride he should one day take.
And it's got to be somebody pretty special. And the one advantage about marrying a princess, for instance, or somebody from a royal family, is that they do know what happens.
Instead, he chose a commoner. Though Diana's family were titled, they were not royal. But at 19, she'd had a preview of what happens. During their courtship, she survived her trial by tabloid.
I've had a small run-up to it all in the last 6 months. And next to British Charles and I can't go wrong.
But Kelly says Charles was panicking about the nuptials and that it was more than just wedding day nerves. It was Camilla Parker Bowles.
He was in love with another woman.
He couldn't marry her because
she was already married.
She says he confided in a family friend, Lord Romsey.
He just said, I could never feel for Diana what I feel for Camilla. And Lord Romsey said, in time, perhaps in time. Now that's chilling.
He also sought his sister's advice.
He went to Princess Anne. She was pregnant at the time, and she really didn't want to hear about it. She wanted him to get on with it.
It was at that time, Kelly writes, shortly before the wedding, that Diana first learned about her rival. When she found a bracelet Prince Charles had bought for Camilla, Diana reportedly went to her own sister for guidance.
Her sister told her she couldn't back out now. You can't do it, Dutch. Your picture's on the tea towels.
In fact, Camilla even attended the ceremony. After the wedding, Kelly says, during the honeymoon on the royal yacht Britannia, An incident occurred that best illustrates Diana's sense of humor. One of the ship's sailors saw Diana run out on the deck in her negligee.
And she said, "Oh, Charles, come and do your duty." And she was very cute. She turned around and she saw the sailor standing there. She blushed, she giggled, she laughed.
How many sailors did you have to interview to find the one?
Well, you get a list of the Navy men that were on duty at that time.
Where do you get such a list?
From somebody who worked on the Britannia.
And why did they give it to Kitty Kelly?
Mostly because I asked.
Kelly writes that it was at that time Diana's battle with bulimia began, much earlier than previously reported. And that's when she consulted a psychiatrist about the disorder. The pressure of a loveless marriage, the relentless invasion of privacy, the controlling palace court she called the enemy, had begun to take their toll. Some saw it as a tragedy waiting to happen.
I feel filled with real sadness. This was a woman who did nothing but extend a golden hand to people without the white gloves of royalty. And I also feel anger. It was unnecessary. It was really unnecessary.
Kitty Kelly, like a lot of people, is angry that Princess Diana had been pursued and besieged, though she does not regard her brand of unauthorized biography as in the same category with paparazzi. But not only will her book make good copy for the Fleet Street press, it already has. Even though it won't be published in Britain because of tough libel laws, the speculation about what's in it began months ago in the British papers. More of what really is in the book tomorrow.
The libel laws are so strict in Britain, the royals won't even be published there. But the denials can be, and some of Kelly's sources say they never talked to the author. Like novelist Barbara Cartland, Princess Diana's step-grandmother, Michael Cole, who's now a spokesman for Mohammed Al Fayed's family, and others. Kelly's answer to that?
I talked to all of them. I have Dame Barbara on tape, talked to her twice on the telephone at length. Thank you note from her and a thank you note from me to her.
Kitty Kelly's controversial portrait of the House of Windsor. Coming up on Dateline. Tonight there is new information about the driver, Henri Paul, and this troubling question. Did Diana die because the French emergency system didn't work? Here's Dennis Murphy.
The new disturbing observations occurred just moments before Princess Diana got into her limousine outside the Ritz. Photographer Pierre Sue was waiting outside when her driver, Henri Paul, emerged.
It was weird that he talked to us and he was giving out information. He was looking happy, excited. He was looking at us, oh, she's coming out in 10 minutes, which was not natural, really.
But was Henri Paul's atypical behavior designed to fool the paparazzi into following a decoy limousine? Or was it a clue that he'd had too much to drink? Something he'd done at the hotel before, according to this Ritz employee who spoke anonymously to the BBC's Panorama program.
We had seen Henri Paul well under the influence before at parties. This year, around May the 1st, there was a drinks reception, and it was the same thing. He arrived on duty, drunk, in the lobby. He was still upright, but he was laughing, talking nonsense, and then he went into his office, and he fell over and cut his nose.
The spokesman for the Fayed family, which owns the Ritz Hotel, said of Henri Paul, quote, "We want no rush to judgment. We are waiting for the full inquiry results to become public before making any comment," unquote. Just why Henri Paul was behind the wheel is only one of the mysteries in the death of the princess. Another question is being raised in Europe. Why did it take the first fully equipped trauma ambulance team 10 or 15 minutes to get to the scene of the accident? Why was it dispatched only after firefighters had already arrived? And why, with Diana's pulse rate dropping, a sign of internal bleeding and injuries, did it take an hour and a half to get her to the emergency room and to the waiting surgeons who might have had a chance to repair her torn vein? Dr. Bob Arnott is Dateline's medical correspondent.
If someone in New York City had a major automobile accident and it took 15 minutes for an ambulance to arrive, there would be hell to pay.
Is she having difficulty breathing?
Almost anywhere in the United States, we can dial 911 and expect an emergency rescue team to get to us fast. They'll have the gear to cut away twisted steel if the victim is trapped. There'll be paramedics on board trained to stabilize the injured person, transfuse them with fluids if necessary, and then get their patient to the hospital ASAP, if not sooner.
Time is extremely important.
Dr. Michael Marin is the Chief of Emergency Services at New York's Lenox Hill Hospital.
As a call goes into the 911 system, the dispatcher now sends the most appropriate level of care, either ambulance or fire department or police, based upon the nature of the call.
It's an emergency trauma care system that usually works very, very well. But here in France, there is no one-stop 911 kind of emergency system. Imagine for a moment that we spotted a car over there on fire. Well, we're going to call for help, but we've got three choices to make. You go to the phone booth, and you can call 1-7 for the police. Or it's a fire, you could call 1-8 for the fire department. But then again, there may be people trapped inside that car, so perhaps the number we really need to call is 1-5 for the National Ambulance System. Whichever emergency service I end up calling, I'm going to set in motion overlapping bureaucracies.
In France, we don't have a unique number to call the rescue team.
Dr. Jerry Papin runs the emergency room at the American Hospital of Paris. He took some of his medical training in the United States and is familiar with both countries' very different emergency ambulance systems. He explained to Dateline, for starters, here in France, there are 2 ambulance services. When you dial 1-8, the fire department, you may be dispatched a fire department ambulance team with a doctor on board. But very often he's a junior, relatively inexperienced doctor performing a year of required national service. Dial 1-5 and you get SAMU, the name of the National Ambulance Service run by doctors trained to handle trauma cases. SAMU ambulances are mobile emergency rooms. If you're in a bad way in France, you want SAMU to show up. But they're not equipped with life-saving gear like the jaws of life that the firemen carry to cut people from wreckage.
Is there a little bit of a bureaucratic turf war here between these two entities? The SAMU ambulance service, the fire department ambulance service?
I think it's because the things are old here, and we have not yet thinking about the best way to organize the different organization, the different dispatching system.
To Americanize, the risk of the French system is that the more experienced doctor, the SAMU doctor, may be the last to be called. We don't know for sure what happened here at the tunnel because the French authorities have absolutely forbidden the response teams who were here to talk about it. But what likely happened may tell us something about the confusion in the systems. We know that a passerby, a witness to the accident, called the police. The police arrived and determined that there were injuries, so they called in the fire department, an agency that they are closely aligned with. The fire department ambulance and its doctor arrived, did what they could for Diana, but realized that they needed the trauma specialist from SAMU. So you have police to fire to SAMU. 3 different organizations, 3 different appraisals. And all the while, the clock is running on people with grievous bodily injuries. But once the ambulances were there, why were they so slow in getting the princess to the hospital? We don't know how long it took to remove Diana from the wreckage, but it's clear that doctors tried to stabilize her on the scene, where American EMTs likely would have loaded her up and raced to the hospital.
In the United States, the attitude is to get to the patient quickly, get them to the emergency room as quickly as possible.
You're right.
In France, it's a different attitude. What is it?
In fact, United States say we scoop and run. In France, usually, we not play and fun, but we try to stabilize the patient before we transport the patient.
So in America, when people wonder, why did that ambulance stay in the tunnel for more than an hour?
Sometimes we can stay on site for more than 1 hour if we need to do different procedure. Sometimes we need to be long.
2 different versions of emergency care. In the U.S., load up the injured and run for the emergency room. In France, bring the emergency room and trauma doctors to the accident site and stabilize the patient there. And now the second guessing has begun. Could Princess Diana, essentially bleeding to death, have been saved if the French trauma doctors had raced to the hospital rather than attempting to treat her in the tunnel? Or was the injury she sustained so catastrophic that in the end it was not survivable? Natural questions to ask, but unless French authorities